control flow is something, right? Control flow is something that is used as a flow chart, right? And we have taken an example of a person going to a telephone booth and calling a person. So he will go to the telephone booth, just put the coin and dial the number. If the call connects, he will talk to the person and disconnect the call. If the call does not connect, he will try it again, maybe 2 or 3 times, and he'll talk to the person and disconnect it again. So there is a flow chart for this one, right? So for everything, for every process, if you take any business scenario, for everything we'll have a flow chart. So those flow chart can be controlled in the control flow, right? So control flow is where the operation tasks are defined, right? It is used to define the flow chart. So as I showed you just now on the Visual Studio, you can execute a TSQL statement, which is a DDL, DML, and DCL or TCL command. Okay, and you can email error details using the sendmail task or some logging events. You can back up a database. I mean, these are the few things what I've given in the slide, but it does not restrict to that, right? It also defines a workflow that executes these tasks in a specific order. So what happens if task A fails, then send an email, or just if the task A does not fail, just back up database. So you can do the things in a specific manner. So maybe you can consider this as a flow task, flow chart. We are doing several tasks, 3 tasks in parallel, and once three tasks are completed, just execute one container for me. Say it as for each loop container and do one task. And once this is completed, do these 2 things in parallel. Just go here and just go here. And when everything, the whole process is running, run this process and this as in the parallel. So this is how we can define a flow chart. So you'll understand more about it only when you work on it and when you develop SSIS package and when you execute it, right? This is the theoretical concept. Okay, so as I was showing you some of the control flow items, there are few things which where it has where you want to learn about some few things. One is a task, right? So what I told you about the task can be some execute SQL task, or it can be a backup database task, or a file FTP task, or it can be a data flow task. So a task gives a functionality to perform some action. So these are the workflow objects which perform jobs at the operation level, right? So to move, example, data flow task, execute SQL task, these are the things which we'll be doing at the operation level, right? And there are some few containers. I told you the containers, there are few containers, right? So what are the containers we have? For loop container, for each loop container, and we have sequence container. So what it will do, actually it will not do a physical movement, right? What it will do is it will help the process to run for multiple times. Example, for loop will run the process, can run the process for 100 times. For each loop can run the process for the number of files in a folder, or it can run the process for number of lists available in a particular object, right? You can, and the sequence container is used to make the things available in the sequence. So these are the things which are used only to make the processes stronger, so that it is very customized and very dynamic in nature for your projects. And there is a concept called precedence constraints, so which we did not discuss. Precedence constraints is nothing but what should happen next once a particular task or a container is executed. Example, let us take a data flow task. So what I am doing is, what I want to do is, here I want to load the currency. Load currency from Excel to SQL table. So I want to load a currency file from Excel file to Excel table. I'll double click on it. I'll do the ETL operation here. I'll take a Excel source and SQL server destination and perform the action here. But what should I do after completing this? After completing this, please execute one SQL task. So what is the connection between these two and here and here? There is a green arrow coming out of it. This is called a precedence constraint. A green arrow coming out of it, right? So what I'll do is I'll connect this to this. So now SSIS will understand that after running this, for this there is no connection. So what it will do is it will execute this as a first step. It is something like a flow chart, as it said, right? So if there is no connection, it will execute this one first. And once this is completed, I want to execute one SQL task. What I want to do execute as just update everything to USD. I want to update all the values to the USD currency, right? At the same time, what I want to do is I want, once this is done, I want to send an email to the administrator saying that currency file is available. Send email to admin, right? And if there is a failure, in this process, also I want to send an email to admin. So what I can do is I can take the precedence constraint from here, I can put it here. So what this is very important, when I see it as a green color, it means it is success. I repeat, when I see it as green color, it means it is success. When I see it as red color, it is failure. But how can I set whether it is a green color or a red color? By default it is showing as success. But what I want is, if it is success, I want it go to here. But if it is failure, I want to directly send an email. What I want to do is just double click. You have few options here, right? So what is the value available here? Value available is a success, failure and completion. 3 values. Failure. What happened? It turned into red color. So if there is any problem in loading this currency file, I will send an email to administrator saying that it's a failure. If it is success, I'll update everything to the USD values and I'll send an email to administrator saying that it is success based on the scenario. So this type of things I can do. But there are some chances that even though if it is a failure or a success, once this completes, what I want to do is I want to keep a record in my database saying that this particular process is completed at this time. So what I can do is I can take a execute SQL task. I don't mind whether it is a success or failure. What I want to do is, even if it is success or failure, I want to update the log. So update table log. Even if it's success or failure, I want to do it. In that, what should I do is I should double click it, go here and go completion. And this is in blue color, right? So I can save the project by going here and save, right? So this is how it works. These are called as precedence constraints. But we have more topics about the precedence constraints later part of the session, and we have some few properties to learn about that. So this is exactly equal to the concept of exception handling the programming language. If someone is from the programming language, you have this one, right? Try, catch and final in the oops concept. You have tries, you will try that, but if everything is success, it will still be in the try. If there is a failure, it goes to the catch, right? And whether it executes a try or catch, finally it goes to the finally. It's not finally, it's finally. It goes to the finally, right? So it is something also like this. If it's success goes here, failure goes here. Whether it is success or failure doesn't mind, just go here. So this is how things can be handled from the precedence constraints, right? So any questions in mind, just put it in the chat window. We'll try to answer it later. Okay, so these are the things I have, but I have some scenarios to explain you. Okay, so I have some scenarios to explain you. Okay, so I have created 3 scenarios where we are doing the control flow items. Okay, so I want to design a package to load employees Excel sheet to table called new hires. Okay. Okay, so one input before answering the before doing these things, right? So we are using a database called AdventureWorks. Okay, so in SQL Server there is a database called AdventureWorks, which is available online also. This is a sample database from Microsoft. Okay, so this is a retail database where it has the sales information. Okay. So AdventureWorks is, maybe you can consider that as a company where it has a sales information inside it. Okay. So there is a table called new hires in this database. So what we want to do is, the question is something like this: design a package to load employees Excel sheet. So there is a Excel sheet of employees with some format, and what we want to do is we want to load that Excel sheet into a table called new hires. Okay. So what I'll do is, like, I'll go here. Okay, so I'll show you. I have the table. I have some sample files here. What I have is I have an Excel sheet called employees. Right. So I have some employee information here. I have the national ID number, login ID, so which is related to the employee information. Right. So what I'll do is I'll just cancel this. Okay. So what I want to do is I want to load this employee data into a table called new hires. Okay. So if I go back to the SQL server and connect to my server, I just right click and connect to SQL server. I hope everyone knows how to log into the management studio. Okay. So this is a place where the management studio is maintained. Okay, so management studio is a software to connect to the SQL server database. Okay, when you install SQL server 2014 or other version, what you have is, if you go to all programs, you have a tool called SQL server management studio. Okay, once you click this, what happens is it will give you the same window like this. It will give you the same window like this. What you have to do is you have to give the SQL server name, whatever you have given during the installation. And very important thing, if someone is not from the SQL server background, so I'll try to, if you are from a Java background or other background, very important thing you should know about the SQL server is we have a server name which is our host name. Okay, so whatever the portion I am highlighting here, this is the host name of my computer. Okay, this is the host name of my computer. So what SQL server does is to support multiple installation in the same laptop. To support the multiple installation in the same server, Microsoft has come up with a concept called instance. Okay, so the portion which I am highlighting is called a concept of instance. So instance is an instance where it is pointing to some version of SQL server, right? Example, you are having SQL server 2005 server, right? When you are having SQL server 2005 server, you can give your instance name as SQL05. Okay, so that it knows it should go to the SQL server 2005 version. When you are installing 2008 version, maybe you can give the instance name of SQL08 so that it goes to the 2008 version of the software. So if you are installing 2014, maybe you can give the name as SQL Server 2014, right? So which goes to the 2014 version of the database. So to point to the different versions of the databases within the same server, we can use the concept of instance. Okay. So if someone is from the Oracle background or some other background, so this is very important to learn on the SQL Server side. So I am connecting to my 2008 version of the instance in my local computer. This is my host name and this is my instance. So this instance you will give at the time of installation of SQL Server. So please remember the instance name when you are installing the SQL Server. Okay, and one more thing is, like, if someone is logging here for the first time, there are two authentication modes. One is Windows authentication mode, second one is the SQL Server authentication mode. So Windows authentication is something like based on your Windows user ID and password. If it has the permissions in SQL Server, it will automatically take you to the required permission set. Okay, if you don't have a Windows authentication, if you have a username and password to log into the SQL Server, then you can put a user ID password here. So in my system I have Windows authentication. I'll go to the connect, and once I go here, if someone is seeing this screen for the first time, you have the list of databases available here. Okay, so I'll go to the table called database called AdventureWorks. Okay, so this AdventureWorks, here I have a table called select star from human resources dot new hires. So this is a table. So what I have is, I don't have any data in this table, right? So I just did a select star from human resources dot new hires. I don't have any data in this particular table. What I want to do is, from the Excel file, what I have shown you earlier, I want to load this Excel sheet data into this table. This is my scenario. I want to load this Excel sheet data into this table. So how I can do that using the SSIS? So I'll just go to here, okay, and I will do execute. I'm just going to execute the SQL setup package. So for this, my question is, load Excel sheet data to a SQL table. So what is the source? Source will be Excel sheet, right? So how can I take the source as Excel sheet? So here what we are doing, what kind of concept we are doing? We are doing a concept of data flow task. So this is very important. When you are doing for the first time, you will hear about the scenario. This is the scenario. Design a package to load employees Excel sheet to table new hires. So you have to interpret this question into the technical terms. So what you have to do is load employees Excel. Okay, he is talking about the load to a table called new hires. He is talking about the loading into a destination. It means that there is a source here. So there is a source called Excel sheet and there is a destination called new hires table. So we have to take from source and load into the destination. So when I talk about the source and destination, I am talking about ETL. So ETL can be done in which task? Data flow task, right? So what I can do is I can take a data flow task. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll rename this F2 DFT. I'll do is a DFT load underscore employee underscore new hires. Okay, so I am taking a data flow task to do this operation. So if I double click here, what is my source? Source will be Excel sheet. What is my source? Source is Excel sheet. Am I right? Okay, so to take the source as Excel sheet, in 2014 there is a new concept. Okay, if you don't understand what source you take, what you should do is there are two favorite components here, right? One is source assistant, second one is the destination assistant. So I'll double click on the source assistant. So what is my source? My source is Excel sheet. Okay. So did I set up any connection manager? Did I set up any connection to the Excel? I did not. So what I'll do is I'll click new and I'll click OK. So what it is doing is I am setting up a new connection to the Excel sheet. So it is asking where is your Excel file located. I'll browse and I'll go to the path where my Excel file is located. I just copied that, okay, that path from my system and I click open. Right, I copied that path and I have a table Excel sheet called employees. Okay, and you should say that what kind of version is it? Is it a XLS or XLSX? If you go back to my file, if you see the extension, my worksheet is a 97/2003 worksheet, which is in the format of XLS, .XLS format. Okay, so you should mention that information. So it says 97/2003. If it is a new Excel sheet, which is XLSX, if it is XLSX, then you mention it as Excel 2007. Okay. So you have to tell whether your first row has a column names or not. If you go back to the Excel, maybe you can see that your first row has the column names. This first row is the column names, right? So you have to tell that, okay, yes, I have first row as a column names in my Excel sheet. Okay, right? My file connection manager called Excel sheet is created here, right? So what I'll do is I'll rename it. I'll rename it as Excel underscore employees. This is the connection for my Excel sheet. Okay, this is the connection for my Excel sheet. What should I do is, it has created a connection for Excel sheet and it has given a source as Excel, but it is showing a wrong symbol here. It means something is not correct, right? When I mouse over here, it is giving me a message called a destination table name has not name provided it. What it is saying is, okay, I know your Excel sheet path, okay, but in your Excel sheet there are multiple tabs. Example, if I open my Excel sheet, what it is doing is there are multiple sheets, like one is query, we have only one sheet, right? So we can have any number of tabs in the Excel sheet. It is saying that yes, I know your Excel path, but I don't know which sheet I should refer. So I should double click it. It is already in the Excel connection manager, it already knows what is Excel employees, right? But it does not know what sheet it refers to, right? So in the data access mode, you should tell us if you're dealing with Excel, just select table or view and go here, and it will give you the tab name. It will give you the tab name. The tab name for my Excel employee Excel is query, right? What should I do is query. Just select query and go to the columns. Automatically it reads all the metadata from my Excel sheet. These are the first row has the column names, right? Based on that column information, it is showing me the metadata. And click OK. Now the error is gone. Okay, so and where should I load this data? I should load this data into a table called new hires. Right? So what is my scenario? To load employees Excel sheet into a table called new hires. So new hires is a table located in SQL Server database, okay, which is available in this server and this database. Okay. So I'm loading it to a destination. So I'll choose a destination assistant. To which server I have to load? I have to load to SQL Server. Is it new? Yes. Click OK. So here what I have to do is I have to select the server name of the SQL Server. So what is the server name of my SQL Server? You have to know your server name. So my server name is sandrita-pc_/SQL08. Right? This is my host name and this is my instance name. I can use Windows authentication to access my SQL Server. As I told you, if you are having a username and password to connect to SQL Server, then you give your username and password here. Otherwise, you use the Windows authentication. Okay? And automatically, if the connection is succeeded, you can do a test connection. It says test connection succeeded. And if you click this drop down list, it will ask you to enter a database name. So I can just click this drop down list, and automatically as the connection is succeeded, it will show me all the databases available in my SQL Server. If I go back here, it is the same place, right? So if I click here, these are the list of databases available in my SQL Server 2008 R2, right? In the same way, if I go here, I can see the same databases. So I'll select a database called AdventureWorks. Okay, and leave the remaining things as it is. Click OK, and come here. So what it is saying is, hey, you have created this particular connection, but we did not specify the destination name, right? So we have selected server name and database name, but we never gave the table name. Double click it. So it is saying that this component has no available input columns. Do you want to continue editing available properties for this component? Very good, important point. You double clicked it and it is saying that I'm not getting anything from the source. Do you still want to continue? Actually, I don't want to. I'll click it no. Okay. If I click yes, it will not have any mapping from the source to the destination. So what I'll do is, as I said in the precedence constraints, from here I have pipeline. Okay. So I have a concept of pipeline in the data flow. I will drag and drop the pipeline like this. So once I have the pipeline ready here, so what does this pipeline will do? It will pass all the source information in the form of columns and in the form of data through this pipeline. This pipeline is a place where it transfers all the data. In the data flow task, this pipeline is a place where it transfers all the data from the source. So I have to give a pipeline information here. So this is my pipeline. Double click. No, it will not give that error. And it has given something else here. Right, what is your table name? Table name is nothing but human resources.newhires, right? I just select here and go here and select human resources.newhires. So what should happen is, the mapping should happen correctly. If I go to the mappings, very important concept, if I go to the mappings, if something is not clear, please clear it off here. If I go to the mappings, what it is doing is, based on my employees Excel sheet information. Example, if I open my Excel sheet again, based on this column information and based on the column information in this table, what it is doing is, it is doing a name to name match, and if the names are same, example, you have national ID number here and national ID number here. If the names are same, it is thinking that okay, this source column is same as this destination column, and it is doing an automatic mapping. So these are the input columns, these are the destination, these are the input columns from Excel sheet. These are the input columns from the SQL server. Because the names are same from source and destination, it is doing a direct mapping. It means that whatever the information you get from this national ID number here, it will push into the table called new hires and into this column. So it is doing a automatic one-to-one mapping here based on the name. Sometimes, like in the real-time projects, everything is not like this. Sometimes you will get sales AMT in your input column. Example, in the real time, what happens is, I'll take another question. Okay. So, in the real time, what happens is, from the source, you will get it as sales amount. But your database column, DB table column, is sales underscore amount. Actually, these both are same. Sales amount and sales amount is same, but as the naming convention is different, it will not do a mapping properly. So it will ignore. So at that time you have to do a proper mapping. Example, employee ID is not mapped here. So why it is not mapped? So if you select here, you don't have any input column to select here. So this employee ID is only available in the database, but not in the Excel sheet. Okay. So let us go to the human resources.new hires. So if you know the concept of SQL server, so to see the metadata, we use a command called sp_help and see and select it and click execute. So sp_help gives the metadata of this table, right? So we have the employee ID column, which is a identity column. So if you know the basics of SQL, you should be already know what is identity column, right? Identity column is something like which you can start with a number and increment with some number, right? So employee ID is identity column. So we need not go specify anything. Automatically it's a incremental number. So that's why it need not be mapped from the source. And remaining things based on the name, it is already mapped. And then just click OK. And it is giving some warning to me. It is saying that truncation may occur due to the inserting data from gender with a length of 255 to length of same something. Example, if I take the gender here. So how much is the gender here? Length 2. Length is 2 for the gender. But if from the metadata it is showing that in the Excel sheet it has a metadata of 255, that's why it is giving a warning. So always you can ignore the warnings in SQL server. So no need to worry about the warning. So what I'll do is I'll just select star from human resource.new hires. Do I have any data here? I don't have any data. But what we will do is we will run this SSIS package now. We will run this SSIS package and see if the data is loaded. Execute package. Okay, so to run a SSIS package, what you can do is right click and execute package. Once you do this, what it will do is SSIS will start. Okay, SSIS, there is a start symbol here and it will automatically change to some other symbol. So SSIS is starting. So let's wait for it to start this data flow task, which is loading the employee information from Excel sheet to the new hires. Okay, so what it is saying is the acquire connection method to call the Excel employees failed with there may be messages before this one. Excel reach failed. There, what it is saying is there is some connection failure from Excel sheet. So why it is a failure, how it is failing, let us see that. Okay. Okay, so let us double click this and go here. When you see this one, right, and it is actually failing. So why it is failing? Because already we have opened this Excel sheet. So these type of errors will occur. Already because we have already opened this Excel sheet in my local computer, so it is not able to read the data. So what I will do is I will close this Excel sheet and cancel this. Okay, again go back here and select no. Now it is giving properly. So make sure that your source files are closed. So these type of things can happen in the class. sometimes we overcome that and we may not identify the problem within the class, right? So if that is something related to that, I will work offline and get back to you. But here, fortunately, we are able to fix the problem because file is already open, it is not able to read. But the type of error it is showing is different. Okay, so now it is loaded. Now I'll do is I'll right click and execute the package. Now the package is executing. If I go to the data flow task, when the package is executing, I just double click on the data flow task. When it is a write symbol, it means that it has properly taken the data. When it is write symbol, it has properly loaded the data. Okay, so, but how many number of records it has loaded? It has loaded only 5 records from the source because there are only 5 records in the source. It has loaded all the 5 records here, right? So let us see. So let us go back to this table and see if the information is loaded. Yes, the information is loaded, right? So I have given some names of the employees where this information can be loaded from the Excel sheet. If you see this Excel sheet, automatically 5 rows are loaded, right? So what I'll do is I want to stop this package. To stop this package on the top, you have a section called stop debugging. Okay, you should do the stop debugging to stop this package. Okay, what I'll do is I'll right click and execute it again. Again it has executed successfully. Again it has loaded 5 rows. I will stop this package. But if I go back to the table, now it is loading 10 records, but with the duplicate employee information, because the first set of 5 rows is already the correct set of information. Again it is loading the same employee information here, which is not correct, right? Example, if I load it again, what it is doing is it is creating the duplicate records of the employees. But I don't want something like that. Hope you understood the problem. Okay, hope you, I was reading some questions like if I can answer that, but that's okay. So what it is doing is like there are only 5 set of employees in the source, but when you execute the package, actually it is loading the duplicate information, but I don't want that. So to avoid this kind of situation, what I want to do is every time I start this package, I want to clear the table first. I want to clear this table first. What I want to do is I want to truncate this table. Every time before I load the package, I want to truncate it. But I don't want to truncate manually from SQL Server. What I want to do is I want SSIS package itself to truncate the table and load the information, so that any number of times you run the package, it gives the same set of employees, whatever is available in the source, not duplicating it every time, which is leading to the confusion, right? So what I'll do is I have to add this statement in the SSIS. So how can I add this statement? So to do the SQL related stuff, data definition language, create, alter, drop. Okay, to do create, alter, drop, or let me do DML, which is insert, delete, update. You have DCL and TCL, right? So any commands you want to execute in the SQL, okay, you have to use a task called execute SQL task. Okay, so what I will do is I will use a task called execute SQL task to run my truncate statement. So what it will do is I will put it as SQL truncate new hires. I will rename it so that it is understandable format. Double click. Very important task. So first of all, you have to specify the connection. So where you want to truncate this table. So I have a section called connection here. I will select the connection as, it has 2 options. Is it a new connection or is it existing connection? Because already we have set up the connection for SQL Server. It is showing the connection for existing connection. So I will select the existing connection. Okay. So what is your SQL source type? Do you want to give a direct input, or do you want to give a file connection, or you want to put your query in a variable? So for now I want to give a direct input. So what is your input? SQL statement. What is your input? Truncate table human resources dot new hires. This is my input. And there are few other sections here. For now it is not needed. I'll tell you when it is needed. Right? We have parameter mapping, result set and expressions. For this example it is not needed. So I'm doing only three things. I'm setting up the connection and I'm leaving the direct input as default and giving my SQL statement as truncate table new hires. Now this is set up. So what I'll do is I'll save the thing. Go and save. So what it will do is it will truncate the table before it starts. But I want to maintain a sequence. I want to run this first and run this later. How can I do this? I can use this concept of precedence constraints and drag and drop like this. So what it will do is this will be starting first, and once this is completed it will be going here, right? So first of all it has truncated the table and it is loading the data. So earlier if you see the number of records here, we had 15 records, but now it is truncating the table and loading. We should have only 5 records there, right? We should have only 5 records. So what we will do is we will run the package again, right? So we will run the package, we will stop this package. Okay, so even though we are running it multiple times, what should happen? It should not duplicate the data because it is truncating first and loading. Even though we are running it for the second time, it should still have the same set of data what source system has. Source has only 5 records. Although we are running it for the second time, it should still have the 5 records. Now it has 5 records. If I execute it again, it should still have 5 records. So this is what the exact expected behavior, right? Even if I run it for the third time, right, it will still pass the 5 rows here, but because of the truncate statement we have put there, it will still show the 5 rows, right? So this is something we can do using the concept of precedence constraints and execute SQL, right? Okay, so we have something, this is what which covers the 2 set of examples. So I want to design a package to load employees Excel to table. This is what we did initially, but there was a problem in it. What was the problem? It was duplicating the data. So what is the second scenario is design the above package in such a way that data remains in sync with Excel irrespective of the number of executions of the package. So what we did is, before this to achieve, we have added a truncate statement using the execute SQL task, and we have used precedence constraints to link them up, so that first of all it will truncate the table and it will execute the data flow task. So by this what happens? It will remain, it will maintain the data in sync with the source system. Source system has 10 records, this will also have 10 records at every time. So that is what we did in the second step. So that covers the second step of the scenario, right? So design the same package as above, okay, but an email should be sent, an email should be delivered in case of failures in loading, okay. So what happens is, we have this package set, but the question is something like this: if there are any failures in the package, send an email to some person. How we can do that? So to send an email, we use a task called send email task. Okay, so you should understand what are the different tasks here first. But what I am doing is, I am trying to give you a scenario and convert into these tasks. Instead of learning this task as a theoretical basis, I am giving you a scenario so that you understand what task to pick from here. So once you practice for maybe 5 times or 6 times, by that you already know that what task to be used at which scenario, right? So the question scenario is something like this: design the above package, but an email should be sent in case of failures, right? If there are any failures in loading, an email should be sent, right? So how can we set this a failure? Just click here, there is a green button, green arrow, just pass it here. But what it is doing is, this is a success message. This precedence constraint is showing a success because it is green. But I want to convert this into failure. What I have to do is double click. Okay, and there is a value called success, failure. Remaining options we will see it later. If there is a failure, just send an email to some person. So how can set the email? So basically, right, to send some email to any person, okay, to send an email to any person, you should have the SMTP server ready. Okay, to send email, let me save this file, 2014-28. Okay, to send an email, what happens is we use the concept of SMTP server. So basically you should know your SMTP server details. Okay, so your organization will have one SMTP server and they will have one user ID and password, right? So what you can do is, currently I don't have any SMTP server in my system, but in online there are lot of free SMTP servers for you to test. Okay, so what I'll do is, like, double click here, go to the options called mail, and have to set up a SMTP connection. For setting up a SMTP connection, what you need is, I want the SMTP server name. So what is your SMTP server? So for now in my laptop I don't have the SMTP server, so I cannot test it, right? So you give the SMTP server. In that SMTP server, if you have a Windows authentication to that SMTP server, automatically with your name it will send an email to the person. Example, let us say that our SMTP server is smtp.abc.net. This is some name of SMTP server. Example, I use Windows authentication. I know that it will give a failure, and just I am setting up the SMTP connection manager for you to understand. So from whom you are sending? So you are sending from some email ID, right? Some email ID, some Edureka _ MSBI. Right? At edureka.com. So to whom you are sending? You are sending to ABC, or you are sending to admin at edureka.com. Do you want to put a CEC or BCC? Then you can put it here, and you can type your message. You can message source can be a direct input, or it can be a file, or it can be a variable. It means you can write it directly here, or you have your content stored somewhere in the file, maybe in a notepad, and you can take a connection for that, or you can put it in a variable. We'll see what is a variable, and you can put it in here. So what I want to do is, I want to do directly input SSIS package execute SQL setup failed with errors. Please look into this, right? So I want to do something like this. If you have any attachments, you can attach it. Just select and just browse and select attachment, and just click OK. Click save. Okay, so here when I run this package, right, actually it will fail because I don't have SMTP connection set up properly. This is my sample connection, right? So it will fail. So, but this scenario will occur only when there is some failure here. It will go here only when there is a failure here. But if you usually run this package, it will not come here because there is no failure in it. Just run the package. It is success. Because it is success, it is going here and it is loading the data. It will never come here. So what we should do is, we'll put a condition that it is failed, right? So what I'll do is, to make this fail, I'll just right click properties. Okay, so there are some few, if I right click on the control flow and go to properties, there are some few properties here. But if I click here and go to properties, there are some few properties, right? So we can, what we can do is, we can actually fail a package using some of the properties. We can fail a task, right? So there is a property called force execution result. Okay, force execution, by default it is none. What I will do is, I'll do force execution result to failure. Wantedly I am doing it as failure because I want to test something, right? By default it is success, but even though it is success, I want it to be failure here, right? So what it will happen is, even though it is success, it will come to the failure and it will try to execute as the send mail task. As we did not set up the send mail task with a proper SMTP, this will not work, but the control will come until here. Let us try that. See, this is, we have set up forced as execution as failure. So this is even though this is success, actually in real time, but it is showing as failure. As it is failed, it will come here, and this is failed because SMTP server is not set up properly. If SMTP server is set up properly, what it will do is it will send an email to that person so that that person can receive the email, right? Hope this clarifies this example. Any questions? Just try to ask. Okay, let me get some water. So these are the few examples I have explained you, but there are few questions from the audience again. I'll try to read out those questions and try to answer all the possible things. Because this is the first weekend where you are attending the SSIS package, I don't want you to rush through the course. But I want you to understand the basic concepts, so the next 5 days you have ample of time to practice your things and come back with full energy for the next weekend, right? Okay, so there are a lot of questions from Bhaskar Raju. Looks like he's a very enthusiastic person in the ETL. He's raising a lot of questions here. That's good. Let me take one of these questions. One source assistant can read multiple tabs from Excel file, or we have to create source assistant for each tab from Excel. Example, I have 5 tabs in one Excel file. Do I need to create 5 source assistants? Okay, so here in this example, he is asking a topic called, in the Excel sheet we have selected one tab, right? But say suppose you have 5 different tabs in in one Excel sheet. He is asking whether I need to create 5 sources, or I can do it only by one source also. Very good question. There are 2 options. Okay. One option is you can create 5 sources to get the 5 tabs. To in each query you can get the tab information from that Excel sheet. So in the first source Excel sheet you will get the first tab, in the second Excel source connection you get the second tab, like that you do the 5 times. But that is very traditional way of doing the things. So we have a very beautiful concept in SSIS to perform these type of concepts. What you can do is we can set this Excel sheet as some dynamic parameters in a table or in some list. Okay, and we can use a concept called for each loop container and put this Excel data flow task inside the for each loop container, use the Excel source inside that. So we will smartly create, when you execute it for the first time, please take this tab information. Okay, and when you run it for the second time, say take the second tab. When you run for the third time, take the third tab. Okay, we can set those properties using the concept of for each loop, data flow tasks, and Excel, but we have to use a concept called expressions. This is very advanced, which we will discuss in the next class. So, but this concept is achievable in SSIS, and it is very dynamic in nature. Okay. Okay, so the second question he has is, once the data flow is created, you are executing directly. But we have to compile data flow before executing, because when we compile data flow, then code will be created backend. Okay, so his question is, why are you not executing the, not compiling the package, why are you executing directly? Okay, so the reason is, when you directly execute the package, it does 2 things. One is it will execute the code in the backend, it will compile the code in the backend, it will execute. So if you directly compile, example, I created this package, if I compile it, what is the meaning of compile? There is a button called build. Okay, if I go to the top, there is a button called build. If I build this, what it will do is it will do a compilation, and it will give a message on the bottom here, build succeeded. If you see the bottom message, build succeeded. So this is nothing but compilation. Okay, if I directly execute the SSIS package, what it will do is it will compile first and it will execute. It will do 2 steps at a time. So that is the advantage when you do a execution of the package directly. Right? Let me take some other things. Okay. Why are you not compiling? How backend code is created without compile? Where can you see the compilation code designer? Okay, so as I told you, it is showing the compilation build succeeded, right? So if you go here, if there are any error list, it will show in the error list. If there are no errors, if you see the error list here, it will show here. If there are no errors, it will not show any errors. So this is where you can check whether your code is executed properly or not. In real scenario, warnings not allowed when we promote the code to production environment. How do we compress the warnings in the designer? Not true. It is not true. Sometimes you can have warnings in the production, depend on your project requirements. If the project is too critical and if the project specifications or if the project guidelines say that I don't want any warnings, I have 5 developers to do that, please remove all the warnings, then we can always do the warning set. How we can do the warning, remove the warnings is, by default it is taking the metadata of 255 varchar, 255 column from the Excel sheet. What we should do is we should convert that into 2 character format using some concept called delayed column, and then we should map it. Then you don't get the warnings. So if the project has lot of members to do the design in such a way, then we can easily remove the warnings using the different concepts. Here he's asking about the warning what we got here, right? If I remove this, we got these warnings here. So he's saying warnings are not allowed, but if you don't want warnings, how we can remove these warnings? Based on the error it gives, we use some concept in SSH to remove these warnings. Possible, but it does not mean that warnings, the packages with warnings also can be moved to production. That is possible. Okay, so the other question is, this question is from Bhavin. Instead of truncating, is there any way to update employee information if not exists and new one? Okay, that's a very good scenario. So he's asking, why are you truncating the employee information here? Okay, instead of truncating, what he wants is, he wants if exists update, or if not exists, then you insert. Okay, to do that concept, we can do that concept. So there is a concept called slowly changing dimension. If I double click the data flow, there is a concept called slowly changing dimensions, which is a concept of data warehouse, where we have type 1 dimension, type 2 and type 3. So we can use this concept and do this concept. The concept is, if the employee information if the employee information is present in the table, then we update it. If the employee information is not present, we do the insert. We can do that using the slowly changing dimension, which is a very advanced topic and we cover in the future classes. He said, other question is, how do you check how many records loaded in the destination database at designer level instead of checking the DB level? Yeah, in the designer level you can check it. Actually it was showing the 5 rows or happened here, and even if you go to the execution results, everything it will give here. Example, if I remove this error, if I go here and check the right click and properties, I actually gave the force execution result failure, right? I will give it none, right? And then save it and try to run it again. Right? So it is, if you double click here in the designer level, it is showing that 5 records got loaded. This is the designer information. Or if you go to the progress tab, it will give the step-by-step information. So what it is doing, how it is doing, how many records got loaded, everything, all the information is present in this place. So you can go here also and you can check that whether it is really passing the 5 records or not. Okay. So this is the place where you can check in the designer level. Okay, where do you see the complete error messages, error log or run log? Yeah, this is the answer. In the execution results, this is the run log. This is your log. Error information is also present here. If something is error, it will show as a red color. This is stop button. This is information. This is warning. Right? This is the execution log or error log. If there is any error, it will show here, which is the execution results tab. Okay, so another question from Narayanan is, do we need to create separate connection for separate Excel files? Yes, if it is one Excel file, then you create one connection. If you are having 10 Excel files, example, one Excel file is talking about employee information, you will have one connection here, right? One Excel sheet is talking about employees, one connection, but another Excel sheet is talking about sales related data. Then you should have another Excel. Another Excel is talking about some profits, right? This should have another connection. And another Excel sheet may be talking about currencies. You should have another Excel. So maybe another Excel is for the products. You should have another Excel, because every Excel will have different connection and the column information is different. When the metadata is different in the different Excel sheets, then you have to create a separate connection. Okay, so I'm just, because I'm trying to answer most of the questions, because this is the starting phase of the SSIS. Great. So I think I don't have any other questions in the topic, but as I said, like, I apologize if someone is, if I'm not able to answer somebody's questions, but what you can do is you can just copy the question and paste it back so that it comes to my attention. Okay. Apologies for that, but I hope everyone I answered all the questions. Right. So this is something on the control flow tasks, and this is instead of giving the theoretical concept, what I want to do is I wanted to give you a scenario, take it back here, so that at least when you ask the questions, I answer something that the people are at least aware of the SSIS. Right. Now what I'll do is I'll go back to my PPT. Okay. I'll go back to my PPT and I've clearly explained you these concepts. Right? So these are the control flow element tasks. So right, I was telling you some of the, giving you some of the tasks in the control flow. So it can be, what it can do is it can build blocks of control flow using some grouping and some containers. Actually it provides the flow chart, which is the actual functionality, right? And it can implement variety of functionalities. What variety of functionalities? It can try, it can do execute SQL, it can do a data flow task, it can do a send mail task, it can do a FTP task, it can do anything, right? Help in preparing the data, perform workflow and BI actions. Basically it can copy a file, download a file, upload a file, call a package, all these things it can do. Basically this is a workflow. These are the different things which we can do it in the control flow, right? So as you can see in the control flow, these are the different types of tasks. So as I told you, there are data preparation tasks. So what are data preparation tasks? Something which you can prepare the data. Example, the copying a file using a file system task, or backing up a database, or downloading a file. These are the types of things which are the data preparation tasks. So theoretically we group that into these things, but when it comes to a practical scenario, it is up to you how you handle that, right? So I'll try to focus on the practical and relate to the theory. So we have some concept called RDBMS tasks. So if you go back here, so there are few in the control flow tasks, there are some RDBMS tasks. So what are those RDBMS tasks? You can have all the different RDBMS, like for example, rebuilding an index in a table, right? Or rebuilding all the indexes of a database, syncing a database, transfer a database, transfer jobs, SQL Server jobs, transfer logins. All these things are part of the RDBMS, right? So these, you can do these type of things also. You have some analysis services tasks. So what do you mean by analysis services? SSIS. So there is a task for calling the analysis services executable, where it can process your cube. Very advanced topic, we'll see it later, right? We have some workflow tasks. Workflow task is basically to create the workflow, right? So whatever you do it in the control flow, so basically there are some workflow tasks which we will see it later to how it will define the workflow. You have some SMO admin task, which is a SQL Server management object to transfer some logins or transfer some users, right? And you have some data flow tasks. So these are the data preparation tasks what I was talking about, because I was just telling you the theory, but when it comes to the grouping of them, these are some of the data flow tasks. File system task, example, this is used to copy the list of files from a folder. FTP task is used to download the FTP data. Web service task will be used to call the web service information. And XML task is used to do a XML related operation, right? So these are the different tasks available in the control flow. Okay, so these theoretical concepts, you will see it here, but not everything we will do in the class. We will do very important things, and if you have some time, you can do the remaining things and ask for the questions, right? So as I told you, these are some of the RDBMS tasks, so which are available here, right? Okay, so I'll show you some other example. So I want to do a hands-on, all right? So what I want to do is I want to execute a SQL task, and I want to do a database. So what is my concept is, I want to use SSIS package to back up a database. So if I go back to my SQL server, these are the list of databases I have, right? So what I want to do is I want to back up a database, right? So how you can do the backup of the database? You can do it manually by right-clicking the SQL server, and you can go to some tasks, and you can go to the task, and you can do a backup of the database from here. But how you can do it from the SSIS, right, is our topic. Okay. So I will go here, and then what I'll do is I'll create a new package. Okay. Here what I'll do is, once this package is created, I'll try to rename it to backup DB. Okay. So how can I back up a database? So what do you mean by backing up a database? You have a database, you want to make a copy of it. That is a backup, right? So I have a backup database task in SSIS, right? I can go here and I can search for a backup database task. So it will be available here. Okay, so I have a task called backup database task. So what I can do is I can drag and drop or double click it. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to back up a database called AdventureWorks GWX, right? I want to back up this. So how can I back up this? What I have to do is just double click here. So what you have to do is you have to select the backup type. If you are from a DBA background in SQL Server or some other database, you should be already knowing what are the different types of backup available. So, but this class does not explain you what are the different types of backups, but these are the different types of backup options available. What we'll do is we'll do a full backup. Okay, we'll do a full backup, and it is saying that it is throwing an error. This task requires the connections to be initialized. We are saying that I want a full backup, but for which database? For which database you want a full backup? I have to say specify a connection, right? I'll just click OK. And if I see the screen, right, if it is saying all database, system database, this one, all user databases. So what kind of database I want to do this? But it is not giving any list to me. So this one, right, this one is not giving me the proper information. So what I'll do is I'll do a cancel, right? And if you notice on the top, there is a button called new, right? The button called new. So it is asking for the connection name of the package. So my connection name is AdventureWorks. Adventure. Just give some connection name here, right? Specify the following to connect to the SQL Server data, right? So what should I specify here? I should specify the server name. So if I click the ellipsis button here, it will try to give the list of server names available here. But if you already know the server name, example, I know if I go back here, the database which I want to back up is available in this server. So what I'll do is I'll just copy it, right? I'll just copy it and come back here, right? So the ellipsis button is still running, because what it is doing is, if you click this, it will try to go through all the servers available in your server. So I have different instances of SQL Server available here. So it is searching for everything, but I want to take it one of this one, right? So if you know already the name, you can just paste it or just select from here, right? I can use a Windows authentication. So once you have the Windows authentication, I just give the name here. So name can be anything here. I just click OK. Okay. Once you have the connection specified here, you can select the database. Right. These databases. I want to back up a database called this one. Right. It is showing specific database. My specific database is this one. Right. So the beautiful thing of this one, actually you can generate a TSQL once everything is done. Okay, so this is the database you want to backup, but where you want to store it? This is the database you want to backup, right? But where you want to store it? I want to store it into a file, right? So what it is doing, create a backup file for every database, right? So where it is storing in some place, right? So what I'll do is I'll just copy this part and see if I have the access to this path. Okay, I have the access to this path, right? So what I'll do is I have previous backups also here, but I don't want these backups. I'm just deleting it. Okay, I don't want those backups, right? So I'm just going to this path, and what I'll do is I have already given the backup database which has to be backed up. I have already given the file which has to be in where this backup has to be stored. This is the path, right? And if I view the beautiful thing about this is you can view the TSQL. If you click the TSQL, it will give the SQL command which you can use it for automation purpose. Maybe if you want to use it somewhere, you can just copy this SQL command and actually you can run it from here also. It is giving SQL command, SQL backup database to disk, and this is the disk path with no format, no initialization, and name is this one, and it is giving some database options. This is the SQL query it is running inside those. So what I don't want anything else. I don't want any other options. Just click OK. Right. So currently in this path, I don't have anything backup related to the AdventureWorks database. Right. So I don't have anything here. What I'll do is I'll go back to my package. Okay. I'll go back to my package and execute this one. So it is because it is a backing up of a database, it will take some time to take all the database tables and load into a backup file. Right now it is showing it as success. As someone asked earlier, where I can monitor this progress, I can monitor the progress here. It is starting, it is completed, and it is finished. And this is the time it started, and it is time it has taken. It has taken 5.975 milliseconds. This is 5 seconds, 0.975 milliseconds, right? So totally you can consider it as 6 seconds totally, right? In 6 seconds it has completed the database backup, and I'm just stopping it because I have selected a small database. If you are taking a database of 100 gig or 50 gig, then you can just forget for 5 or 6 hours and come back because it's too much of information. This is only a 50 meg database, so it will be very fast. If I go here, right, the path which I selected for the backup, automatically it has created a backup called, this is the timestamp, today's timestamp, and it is giving the time also 12:26, which is a Singapore time right now, and it is giving .bak file, and it is a 46 meg file, right? And you can back up the things like this. And hope this understands. Hope this clarifies your questions, right? So this is what I have, and if I go to further to the workflow tasks, right? And workflow tasks are something like execute package task, calling a package from another package, or execute process task, these send mail tasks. These are the workflow tasks, right? So what I can do is I can quickly tell you a workflow task. What I'll do is I'll create a new SSIS package. Right, workflow tasks. What is my scenario here is I want to call a package called backup database from workflow task. I want to call like this. What I can do is, the scenario is something like this. I want to call backup database.dtxx from this package. Right. So to call that package, what should I do? I should use a package called execute package task. right? Execute package task. So what I'll do is this will execute package task child underscore exec child package, right? So what you have to do is like just double click here, okay, and go to the package information. So what it is doing is package name from project reference. Within the project reference, what is the package you want to call, right? I just have to select, and I have to select the project backup DB, right, and click OK. That's it. So what is happening is I'm creating a master package which is a workflow task. From this package will call this package, and what this package will do, this will back up a database based on the timestamp. So what is the output of this one? Once you go to this one, currently we have only one backup file, but once I execute the execute package task, it should call the child package which is the backup DB, and backup DB should generate another backup, right? So here we have only one file, but once the process is completed, we should have two files. Let us see that. So what it is doing is, see, automatically it called backup DB, right? Actually I executed workflow task. If I go to the workflow task, if I see, it is actually executing this one, but inside it is calling a package called backup DB, which is here, and this is also executing, and there is a progress for this, and this is a parent package, there is a progress for this also. What is happening as the backup database is called, this backup database create another backup file in that folder. You go here, there are two files created now. One is at 1226 and another is at 1230. So this is the use of workflow task, and you can call a SSIS package in that way, right? So let's see if there are any questions, because already it's a time up. I don't want you to just expand your time here. So whatever is remaining, as I told you, because we are learning too much of information at the same time. First week, let us put some comfortable time. Next week, I'll try to convert the other things. So I have some question, right? You explained how, I have a question from Master Raju that you explained how to remove warning, but how to compress warning. Want to allow warnings, but don't want to show that my tasks have warnings while promoting upper environments. Okay. So he's asking that, like, you, for the warnings, how we can compress the warnings. Okay, we have some few settings in the SSIS package. Okay, right click. If there is a warning here in the data flow task, if you want to compress this warning, right click, go to properties. Okay, so there are some ignore failures or ignore warnings option here. So just what you have to do is just search for that one. Delay validation, description. This is the miscellaneous options, default Indian thread expressions, done in optimized board. So there will be few things where we can actually ignore them. Disable delay validation, disable. Okay, this one we have to do the settings. So we will see, like, we will see how we can compress these warnings. I'll look up for that setting, Bhaskar, and I'll tell you in the next class, because all these settings will be available in the properties one, and you can actually compress them. I'll give you the settings. So just keep this open, this question open for the next class, right? So that another question from Bhavin is, like, can child package return any value with parent package can use for further processing? Okay, this one, very good question actually. So there is a one-way communication in SSIS package, but no two-way communication. Okay, so this is a parent package. This parent package can call a child package, right? But child package cannot return any variable to the parent package. But parent package can pass some variable information to child package. Okay, so how that will be done is, if you go to the properties and there is a section for configurations, right? In the configuration, if you enable the configurations, there is a concept called parent variable, parent package variable. So using the parent package variable logic, we can actually pass the parameters from parent package to the child package. This is the concept what we do. But child package cannot return any value to the parent package. So there is only one-way communication in the SSIS. Okay. Looks like there are no other questions. So whatever is the pending thing, I'll try to explain in the next class.